Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes on his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendment is very clear. If the amendment passes, no funds in this bill could be used for population control, family planning, or abortion procedures. That will take in about $385 million that we could save by passing this amendment. The most important part of this amendment would be that we would absolutely assure that none of the funding would ever be used for abortion. One of the ways that the funds get to abortion, to the use of abortion, is that the funds are granted for birth control. And then the funds elsewhere can be saved, and those other funds can be used for abortion. In other words, the funds are fungible. It is claimed that people have a need for birth control, and this may be true. But we have not been well received around the world. I'm not quite sure exactly when the United States government and the American taxpayer got involved in the birth control business overseas, but we've been doing it now probably for several decades. But there's a lot of resentment toward America imposing our will on other people. For instance, we have sent over the use of Norplant, a very controversial medical procedure. I'm a gynecologist, and I can attest to it. It is very controversial, yet it was used on hundreds of thousands of women overseas. When that procedure was finally brought to the United States, it was rejected by the American people. As a gynecologist, I spent more time taking these Norplants out than putting them in because of the severe complications with them. But nevertheless, we as taxpayers have continuously sent more funding overseas to support these procedures. But there is no moral justification for us in the U.S. Congress to go and tax poor people in America to go over and impose our ideas and our beliefs on other people's culture. And we've been doing this now for several decades, and a lot of resentment has been building up. There is no constitutional authority for programs like this. There's nowhere in the Constitution where we can find any justification for us imposing our will on other people in this manner. But worst of all, if funds are used for birth control and other funds are saved and then they're used on abortion, it is in a way indirectly supporting abortion. Later on, we will vote on another amendment to curtail the use of funds for abortion, and I will support Chris Smith's amendment in this regard because we hope that would at least help. But one way where we can assure and not worry about it would be to pass this amendment and not send any money over in the first place, because it's not authorized, it's not permissible, it's not moral, and there's a lot of resentment toward us for these very reasons. The issue that always comes up is that the people needs help, but there are a lot of voluntary associations in this country that are willing to help. If we feel compelled to help poor nations in their birth control efforts, it can be done through voluntary means, not through coercion, not taking by force money from people who have philosophic and religious and social beliefs against these programs that we are imposing on others. So this is a program that should be just abolished. It should be stopped. We should not send any funds over there. This argument that we can control the way funds are being spent once they're overseas, we're kidding ourselves when we use that argument. We really lose control of these funds once they get into the hands of other governments or agencies that are dealing with these problems overseas. Typically, programs that are run by governments and international governments don't work very well. And these programs had done very poorly. At the same time, there are poor countries around the world that have carloads, millions of condoms sitting around that aren't used. They can't get surgical gloves to do surgical procedures. There are countries reported from in Africa where they do not have penicillin, and yet they have all the birth control pills that they want. So I argue that this program is unnecessary, unconstitutional. It's an abuse of the rights and beliefs of so many Americans, and it's not well received overseas. The best thing we can do is just take the money away from these programs. Take the $385 million and return it to the American taxpayers. This would be a far better way to use this money other than aggravating, antagonizing people in other countries. What would we think if some foreign government came over and decided that our inner cities were overpopulated and they wanted to impose some population controls and some birth control methods on the inner cities? I'm sure there would be a strong objection to that.
Time of the gentleman has expired. For what purpose does the gentlelady from California rise?
Mr. Chairman, I rise to move to strike the last word.
Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I rise in very strong opposition to the amendment as proposed